Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte, and we have to go over the NHL's trade deadline market. Now, we're still a couple months from the NHL trade deadline. I think it's March 24th, March 25th, something of that vein. It's around that time frame. And we're going to be taking a look at the defenseman market at this point. There aren't a ton of defensemen yet on the market, but there's enough on here that we could do a video about it. So we'll be taking a look at that today. So I separated this into two categories. We have the left shot defenseman and the right shot defenseman. Now, I think this list is going to change very quickly over the next really 2 weeks. I think we're going to get an idea of the buyers and the sellers. So, what we got on the left side here at this moment, we have Ben Chiarot of the Montreal Canadiens. Ben Chiarot is a highly regarded defenseman right now, and really he shined last year in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. A huge part of the Montreal Canadiens' big, bad, red and blue defense, which included Shea Weber, Joel Edmondson, Jeff Petrie, and Ben Chiarot. That was their top four. A very, very solid top four. You had Alex Romanov in there as well. I mean, they had it all over the place in a good way. And Chiarot is going to have plenty of suitors here over the next couple of weeks. I automatically look at the Florida teams. That is my biggest, I'm hedging my bets there. The Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that those teams wouldn't at least be calling on Ben Chiarot. Ben Chiarot, for the Tampa Bay Lightning side of things, would kind of be the replacement to what they lost in David Savard, who, fittingly enough, signed with the Montreal Canadiens last summer. He brings that little bit of grit and sandpaper to the lineup. Kind of reminds me of a Jason Garrison who was in Tampa Bay a couple of years back. So my Tampa Bay Lightning fans out there, kind of similar to a Jason Garrison. The Florida Panthers, kind of a similar situation. You already have Mackenzie Weegar, so I guess they'd be trying to get him for cheap here. But Ben Chiarot is that kind of defenseman. If you're looking at Weegar, a similar player in that regard, just maybe further down the lineup. I think there's a fit there. You know, like I said, the Panthers and the Lightning both have really good defenses, but when you're trying to win a Stanley Cup, we saw how incredibly important depth was. So you already have Weegar and Ekblad, Forsling. I mean, they've got a good system already in Florida. You add a guy like Chiarot, that would definitely help. Looking at some teams on different coasts, you have the LA Kings, who, again, as a rental, Chiarot could be nice if the Kings find themselves in a playoff spot around the deadline. They want to make the playoffs this year. I think Luc Robitaille made that pretty clear, so I think the Kings could add to their depth. And again, they've lost a couple of bodies. Walker's out for the year. Cale Clegg went on waivers to the Montreal Canadiens, so we could see a fit there. And the New York Rangers. I think the Rangers are very much in the hunt for Ben Chiarot. We've seen the season of grit for the New York Rangers. That was one of my titles to a video last year for the Rangers. The Broadway Blue Shirts have made it clear they want to be more difficult to play against. And it's really worked for Gerard Gallant and his system this year. I could see the Rangers definitely going after Chiarot, add some more hard-nosed guys to the lineup, to the similar likes of Reeves, more similar to a guy like Jacob Trouba on the blue line. And I could see the Rangers definitely looking to add that to their roster. Another guy on the left side here. We're going back or over to the Pacific Northwest. If we're looking at the Seattle Kraken in their expansion year, they may be already looking to move on from their captain in their first season. Mark Giordano looks like he's on his way out of Seattle. He's on the final year of his contract. And the big team people have been kind of making rounds about, could he return to the Calgary Flames? I definitely think that's a real possibility for the 40-year-old defenseman. How crazy is that? He won the Norris Trophy back in 2018 as the best defenseman in the league at 36 or 37 at the time, which is quite impressive. But Mark Giordano is still a very solid defenseman. We're seeing that this season in Seattle. It's going to be weird seeing him not in Seattle because of just he has been a huge piece of that group here in year one. But I think the Kraken realize at this point in the game, with his age, if he retires, he's going to be cup chasing. It's best that they decide to let him go for some assets. A very good person, an even better defenseman. So Mark Giordano, definitely a guy to keep an eye on for Calgary. The St. Louis Blues, I think, are definitely in the mix. The LA Kings, for all the times they've seen him in Calgary and Seattle this year, I think the Kings would be interested as well. I've heard that the Maple Leafs could look to take a swing on him to play with some of their younger defensemen there. Like Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren. Giordano could be a really nice veteran on that blue line. The New York Rangers, again, the Rangers I think will be in the mix for another left shot defenseman. Put a little bit less burden on some of the younger guys like Keandre Miller and Niels Lundqvist. So that is definitely on the table. So now we're looking at the right shot defenseman. This has been a guy, I'm almost tired of talking about John Klingberg, but there's so much stuff going on with him right now with the Dallas Stars. He asked for a trade request at the end of 2021, so it looks like there's a 90% chance he'll be out of Dallas by the end of the clock on the deadline. Again, we're going back to the Florida teams. Similar teams here because those are the teams that are talking the most right now. Tampa Bay, Florida, add to that blue line on the right side, though, for this one. The St. Louis Blues, I think, would be a great fit as well. And the Los Angeles Kings, again, another team I could see in the mix. And don't count out the Calgary Flames. If they're looking at Giordano, I could see them taking a waiver on a guy like Klingberg. Colin Miller. We have to talk about Colin Miller. I'm wearing the Sabres jersey today for Colin Miller. Colin Miller of the Buffalo Sabres. Not good news out of Buffalo this week. Malcolm Subban, one of their goaltenders, he will be out for a while. So, Colin Miller will be out as well. He's getting shoulder surgery. So we are not going to see him for any time in the next couple of weeks. I think he's out for at the very least 6 weeks. So that is the situation with Miller. A couple of teams that I think could be interested in him on the East Coast. You have the Capitals, the Rangers, the Leafs, and the Los Angeles Kings. I think all those teams will definitely be looking at Miller at the deadline. And then the last guy we have to talk about here is Josh Manson of the Anaheim Ducks. Now, Josh Manson is interesting in the sense that I don't know where the Ducks are at, that they're trying to move on from Manson. This could be a move where they decide to keep him as their own rental. Josh Manson is a very good defenseman, and it's interesting that the Ducks are still looking at maybe moving him, considering they are third in the Pacific Division right now. They're not even in a wild card spot. They are beyond that at this point, so it's weird to see them still maybe selling off this year. Now, maybe there could be some contract disputes between the two that it may not resolve itself. The Ducks realize maybe they get to the first round and they get knocked out, so maybe it's best to get the assets for Josh Manson. That could potentially be a first and second round pick. Manson is a very highly regarded defenseman, a top 4 defenseman in the NHL, so Josh Manson could definitely gain some value in the marketplace. I think a lot of teams, again, the Florida Panthers, not shy to make trades with the Anaheim Ducks for defensemen. We saw just last year, they brought in Brandon Montour as a depth defenseman. They could do something similar with Manson. I know those were the talks. They were looking at Manson last year. They ended up going with Montour as a rental. The Carolina Hurricanes, similar situation here. They brought in Hayden Fleury last year, as a defenseman to their blue line. Things didn't work out long term. They also brought in Yanni Hakanpää, who is now with the Dallas Stars. Again, another move by the Ducks to the Hurricanes as a defenseman. So those are a couple of defensemen that the Hurricanes have looked at recently. Maybe Josh Manson is the next one there. Now, for some reason, I've always seen a fit with Josh Manson going to the Boston Bruins. I think it's the fact of the way he plays as a two-way defenseman that adds a little bit of grit and size. I think Manson would be a perfect fit for the Boston Bruins in terms of the culture, long-term. Josh Manson in Boston sounds like a perfect spot. And if that happened this summer, I wouldn't be even in the slightest bit surprised. But again, the Bruins are in their own little spot here. They're in a wild card spot. Do they still see themselves as a contender and a playoff team? I think they do. I could see them definitely making that move for Josh Manson. And not a crazy move where you're bringing in a guy like Klingberg or Giordano for that matter, but a good, really, really good, serviceable defenseman to help them on this playoff run, and just maybe bump down some defensemen that maybe had too much of a load that they weren't ready for. For example, a guy like Derek Forbert or Jarl Vakainen, who really didn't step up this year. It allows Manson to come in, and again, this could even be a sign-in trade. I wouldn't be at all shocked if that's what we saw. So guys, let me know what you think of my predictions in the comment section down below. A couple of defensemen here. Again, a couple of left shot defensemen, right shot defensemen. And again, this is going to be ever-changing over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for more videos as we get closer to the trade deadline. Guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.